Parliament's ad hoc committee to initiate and introduce legislation amending Section 25 of the Constitution says although there are still some disagreements on certain key issues regarding the amendments, deliberations that took place in July saw to the adoption of a revised draft bill by majority members in the committee. So the EFF said termed the draft is a sellout, and that the sellout bill, I should say, and that party does not believe that the bill will lead to the expropriation of land without compensation. Yesterday, the party accused the Justice Ministry of betraying the consensus that was built by the EFF and senior leaders of the ANC. And one of those ANC leaders is Mathews Phosa, and he joins us now for more. Good to have you. Thanks very, very much for being with us here on Morning Live.
Good morning, Leanne. And thank you for inviting me to your platform.
Absolute pleasure. So both parties agree that the state has to appropriate without compensation, but the ANC and the EFF disagree on how to approach it. So perhaps you can spell out the differences for us.
Maybe let's start with the protocols, In a discussion like this one on such an important matter, we need to agree to disagree without being disagreeable. The attacks on the Minister of Justice are not acceptable to the ANC. There's no such a thing. The collective work of both the legal committee of the ANC, the NEC, and we supported the ad hoc committee. We believe that this matter is so important as land hunger needs to be addressed, but in the context of addressing it, we have a responsibility to ensure that we don't disrupt food security. We ensure that this agricultural production continues, that the economic sectors stay stable, and we continue to attract investment. We've got a high level of unemployment in this country. We dare not increase that unemployment by acting recklessly and stupidly. So that is what drives the ANC. We accept that Section 25 needed to be made very explicit, and that's what we have put into ad hoc committee. The EFF lost the argument in ad hoc committee. Now, after losing that debate in ad hoc committee, they're throwing their toys out of the court. We say, let's disagree without being disagreeable. The matter is now on the ground again with the public. Let the people of South Africa judge that expropriation bill and tell us where we go wrong or where we need to strengthen without swearing at each other, calling each other names. We need to be very adult about it. When the people come with their comments, like we did on the first round when we received 200,000 submissions, we'll entertain those comments from the grassroots and take the matter further without being insulting to one another.
What is your understanding of custodianship as proposed by the EFF with regards to Section 25 of the Constitution?
Well, we all agree there must be custodianship, but the ANC says very clearly, you need to indicate which part of land must be put under the custodianship of the land. We need to indicate, we need to be specific. We're not dealing with playing marbles here. We're dealing with the perceptions of the world about us, about our economy, whether or not we're a reliable investment destination. And we have to be responsible and move away from populism and the dramatic scenes in all televisions and stages. And so what do we do with this country? What do we do with land? Which land must be in the custody of the state? And it's not going to sit in the hands of the state. The state must distribute it because, like I say in my opening remarks, there is land hunger. And once it is in its custody, it must distribute it in terms of the needs of the people. It's very, very important. And of course, we say that there will be expropriation without compensation in certain cases. In other cases, there will be compensation. If you find improvements, it is decent and good behavior to compensate for those improvements and not to go on a rampage and get into trouble like we've seen across the borders.
Your view, let's get it, on the recent ruling of the High Court of KwaZulu-Natal that found that the Oyama Trust has acted unlawfully and in violation of the Constitution when it forced people to sign leases and pay for the land to the trust. Now, how is this different from the EFF's position currently?
Well, I don't know about the EFF, they must speak for themselves, but I have respect for our courts. I think there's a lot of wisdom with what the court has said, and then I support our courts in that pronouncement. And I feel if anybody does not agree with the court, the opportunity to appeal if it was not a constitutional court. If it's constitutional court, the buck stops there. Now, it is interesting, Leanne, that when we had these inter-party discussions before this matter, before they went to the ad hoc committee, in a meeting with the IFP, the IFP never raised the Oyama Trust. For me, who was there in 1990 when we wrote the Constitution, I found it very interesting. Because in 1919, Oyama Trust was the big issue raised by various players in IFP, including may his soul rest in peace, the late king of the Zulu people. But the IFP did not raise it. And so I hope they will be aligned with the Constitutional Court as well.
So let's get some understanding here, because I mean it seemed at one stage that you were all on the same page, but this is now what we are understanding is that did the EFF and the ANC actually hold bilateral discussions on the issues, as the EFF says that you are betraying agreements that were actually agreed to by the committee and senior members of the ANC?
There's no such agreement. So it's all in the air. There's no such agreement. We met all the parties, Leanne, and we met them once, except the EFF. We met the EFF twice. So they are the only party we met twice. So if there's anybody who talk about agreement you are betrayed, we don't know about those agreements. Those are emotional tantrums. So we don't want to entertain them and elevate them to constitutional discussions.
So what's going to happen now? Because, I mean, since it's mainly the EFF and the ANC that hold the same position on the land issue, and the EFF has said that they will not vote with the ANC, how do you think this will impact the outcome of land expropriation without compensation, as the final draft will need a 2/3 majority?
No, not necessarily. That's why you all make mistakes. The EFF has already lost the argument in that ad hoc committee. That's why there's a bill which is going to the public now. They lost it. They're on the retreat. That's why they're making so much noise, and they lose calmness, and they swear the minister, which is very unjustified and undignified in my view. We can disagree. Let's disagree. But they've lost argument already. So let's listen to what the masses are going to say on that draft bill, and we'll all be guided by the masses. If we believe in the masses, let's be disciplined and wait for the voices of the masses.
So the public hearings have been conducted, and this was done by the Joint Constitutional Review Committee in all the provinces to get public inputs on this amendment of Section 25 of the Constitution. So I'm interested to hear what role that they're going to play in influencing any decision. So from what I'm hearing you saying is they're going to hold a lot of weight.
Listen, Leanne, maybe let's explain slowly. There was the first round of public hearings, which you are referring to. And it came out with 200,000 submissions. We looked at all of them. 1,300 were for the amendment of Section 25. 700 were opposed to the amendment. But we entertained all of them and tried to come with a position which we put before the ad hoc committee, before the committee, which is now having a second consultation, which means the masses are having a second bite at the cherry, which is fine. It's a democracy. Let's listen to everyone.
Yeah, indeed, and that's what we're hoping to hear. But are we going to see the amendment of Section 25 of the Constitution? I mean, that at the end of the day is what everybody wants to hear, and the implementation, given the dynamics that exist now between the only two parties that can achieve the 2/3 majorities, and the other parties don't seem very keen on it.
Well, it doesn't depend on the 2/3 majority. It also depends on the simple majority, which the ANC has. And the ANC is saying it's going to get this a simple majority and amend Section 25. And the EFF can't stop that. If you're going to be blackmailed by a 2/3 majority as the determinant, then you won't have it. But we'll have the amendment based on simple majority. You watch the space.
So what will the proper implementation of Section 25 of the Constitution look like when it's been rolled out?
Well, once the bill is accepted, which will happen, it will be accepted. Whether the EFF kicks the doors or jumps through the windows, it will be accepted. We will insist on the same point. And you're right, Leanne, because the problem in the past 27 years is that we have not implemented that expropriation without compensation. It's always been there, but now we've made it more explicit. We hope the politicians, the executives will get going and distribute land to the poor.
All right. Well, we'll leave that note on, because I'm sure that that's how they feel about this as well. Thanks for your time. That was, of course...
Thank you.
ANC Treasurer General Mathews Phosa explaining the ANC's position on land in regards to the legislation that will see the amendment of Section 25 of the Constitution. So, interesting one. If you want to write to us, you're more than welcome to send us your views and opinions. But these are just some of the big stories that we will see unfolding this week, and many, many more as well. So, yeah, thanks very much to Mathews Phosa for his time here on the programme.